Hello world, and we are back. My name is Kyle Fischl. This is going to be episode 160 of my poker vlog. For this one, I play a 2-5 session at Sarasota, Florida, the One Eye Jack's Poker Room. One quick announcement. The day after this video uploads, Thursday the 24th, I will be playing a 5-5 stream at the Daytona Beach Racing and Card Club. Accompanying me will be Chris Moneymaker, so going to be quite a fun experience. I'll provide a link to the stream in my Instagram when it goes live, so definitely follow me on there if you want to catch the stream live. Otherwise, there will be a video about it coming relatively soon. With that out of the way, let's roll the tape. First hand of note. We start out at the 1-3 table as we often do, and on this hand, with a button straddle to $5, there are 2 limps before I look down at pocket 8s in middle position. I think this is fine to raise up. I think it's ahead of most of these players' limping ranges, and if we flop a set, we want to have a big pot to play for. So I raised to $25. The player to my direct left now 3 bets $2.90. Definitely a large bet, especially at the 1-3 table. You don't see too many 3 bets all too often.
Danger, Will Robinson. Danger. No, Will Robinson. Danger.
When it folds back to me, it's early in the day. Player doesn't really get out of line, so I think I'm just going to let the 8s go and live to fight another day. And when I fold, my opponent shows pocket 10s. So kind of a lighter 3 bet than I would say most lower stakes games, but he still did have the best hand, so nice hand to that guy. Following that, with an under the gun limp, I look down at ace king of clubs. Definitely a premium, even better when an early position player raises to $20. It is my turn to 3 bet.
My turn.
I think 3x plus a little bit for being out of position is standard, so I make it a standard $70 3 bet, and my opponent eventually folds. So trading some 3 bet pots pre brings us to about even until we arrive at the next interesting hand. With 1 limp, I look down at pocket queens from middle position. I raise to $20. It folds all the way to the limper, who is the only caller. So we're heads up to a flop of king 10-9 rainbow. So there's an overcard out there, but we have a gutter to what should be the nuts as we double block ace queen. When my opponent checks to me, I think I can just check this one back. I got some showdown value. I would play ace king and king queen checking 1 street at least some of the time, so I'm not even capped yet. On the turn 4 of spades, my opponent now leads for $20. Well, I did not check the flop to fold to a single bet. We pot controlled a little bit. Hopefully he doesn't have a king. Maybe he has a hand like 10 jack, ace jack, 7-8. Maybe all those hands would throw out a bet here, so I make the call. The river is the 4 of diamonds. So now we beat 9-10. That's a pretty nice development. And on this card, my opponent bets $20 again. And I think I'm getting too good a price to fold, so I flick in the call. And he has ace-10. So my queens are good, and we take down a decent-sized pot. Following that, we're still at the 1-3 table. Under the gun raises to $10. Pretty standard, a little over 3x. I'm in the big blind with ace jack of clubs. Definitely going to 3 bet this one, like to play a bit bigger of a pot when I have such a strong hand. I make it $30. My opponent decides to make the call, so we are heads up to a flop of 5-5-4 2 clubs. Obviously a board I'm not going to connect with too much in general, but having the nut flush draw, I'm definitely going to just throw out a bet here, try to build a pot, have a strong amount of equity against hands like pocket 8s, pocket 9s. And if my opponent folds his nothing, 10 jacks, king queens, things like that, it's a pretty fine pickup. So I continue for $30, and my opponent makes the call. Hopefully I can improve, but we do not on the 9 of diamonds. Shouldn't really change anything too much, unless my opponent had like 9-10 of clubs, 9-8 of clubs. But my opponent can still have some middling pocket pairs that might fold to the second barrel, as this is a 3-bet pot, and I can still have aces, kings, queens, all that jazz. So I continue for $85, and my opponent pretty quickly releases. So we win a nice little 3-bet pot, betting with just ace high. Next hand of note. Under the gun raises to $15. I'm in middle position with pocket 5s. Seems like a good spot to set mine. When I make the call, everyone else folds, so we're heads up to a flop of bink 9-6-5 rainbow. Flopping the effective nuts, my opponent as a under the gun raiser shouldn't really have 7-8 all too often. Pocket 9s is possible, but if it's set over set, it's just not my day. But when he checks it to me, I think it's pretty easy to check this one back. My opponent has likely a bunch of overcards, which are pretty much drawing stone dead. So Happy to give him a chance to catch up, maybe throw out a bluff attempt, I check it back. And the turn is the ace of spades. This is pretty good for me. My opponent had ace X, he's definitely going to bet now. Seems like a fantastic development. And it's somewhat confirmed as my opponent eventually throws out $10. Well, not as big as a bet as I would like, but we'll take it nonetheless. We're going to just call here because we get to play in position, can make sure some money goes in on the river. And when I make the call, the river is the double bink 5 of hearts.
I'm shocked. This is shocking news.
We river quads. What a sick run out. That is guaranteed high hand in this room. Any quads gets paid $500. Even better than that, my opponent bets 30 into me. There is no better feeling than having the actual nuts and have your opponent bet into you. Well, I hope my opponent has something he can call a raise with. A strong ace may call. If he had somehow a slow played set or pocket aces, we're getting it all and then some. But either way, we raise to $105. My opponent tanks for a long time. He honestly doesn't look too strong at all, so I'm pretty much expecting a fold here, knowing that I have to table my hand anyway to get my bonus. And when my opponent eventually folds, I show it pretty immediately. Happy to get the $500 bonus. And in this room, it adds on to your stack. So we're into the 1-3 game for only 500. We got like 8 or 9 in front of us. Seems like a decent result. Before we play a PLO double board bomb pot. Typically don't put these on the vlog, but this one was somewhat interesting. I looked down at ace, 7-4 with spades. And when 8 people put $10 in the middle, the top board is ace, king, 9 with 2 spades. Bottom board is 10, 5, deuce with 2 clubs. So we have the actual nuts on the top board, top set, as well as the nut flush draw. So pretty much going to have the best hand on that board, likely. It checks all the way to me on the button. Going to throw out a bet here, because the bottom board we do have a pair of aces, which should be good some portion of the time. Don't think we need to fully pot it, as the nuts can change drastically throughout the hand. I only bet $50. 2 different players decide to call, so that's decent. We're building the size of the pot. Top board comes deuce of hearts, bottom board comes king of diamonds. As the top board is the one I'm most concerned about, heart flush draw coming through is not great. Bottom board I lose to king 10, and some jack queens are going to feel pretty comfortable continuing. But when it checks to me, I definitely want to charge these people. I still have the nuts on the top board and a nut redraw. If we got folds, we would be very happy with this one. If not, we can just pot the river if we retain the nuts on top. So I bet $160. The player in the big blind decides to call, and the other player folds. So we're going heads up to 2 river cards, which comes the queen of clubs and then the 4 of spades. So jack 10 is now the nuts on top. No longer is it pocket aces, but no flush completed, so it's not the worst. Bottom board, nothing really changed besides 6-3 and ace-3 getting there. Ace-3 pretty unlikely as I double block it, but when my opponent checks to me, I think it's fine to just check this one back. My opponent called 160 on the turn. He could have some nutted hands on bottom that just aren't folding, so seems reasonable, just take my showdown value. And my opponent had ace, king, jack 3 with king, jack of hearts. So definitely happy to fade the heart flush draw on top, but he ends up rivering a straight on bottom. And because it's the second nuts on bottom, he's probably not folding to a pot, but maybe he's a sicko and turns his jack blocker into a bluff, blocking the nuts on top. Either way, we chop up 80 plus a $50 bet from a third opponent, so we make some money on this one. Next hand of note. I'm in middle position with ace-queen offsuit. I raise to $20. The button has other ideas as he raises to $70, and then it folds back to me. Not really going to fold ace-queen, especially against an opponent who 3-bets pretty standardly. My hand is ahead of a lot of his, so we're going to make the call and go to a flop. The flop is 10-8-7 with 2 hearts. I don't have any hearts, but this is a board that should be much better for my range than my opponent's. However, my opponent doesn't seem to care as he continues for $100. I mean, maybe he has an overpair. Maybe it's his turn to have an ace-x of hearts where he can just c-bet pretty happily, but with my exact holding, I don't think I can continue, especially out of position, so I just let this one go. Losing a 3-bet can be expensive, though. You don't really want to have these add up. But we win 2 smaller ones before I'm on the button with pocket 10s. With 2 limps, I raise to $25. And on this one, the big blind 3-bets me again, this time to 90. So turns out I'll be battling with this player today. He's not willing to let it be cheap or easy on me, but 10s on the button seems to be good enough to call. I think 4 betting is kind of an overplay, so we called for the $90. The flop is Queen 5-5 with 2 clubs. I do have the 10 of clubs, so somewhat relevant. On this board where I would expect my opponent to continue a lot of the time as he has ace, queen, king, queen, and I shouldn't all too often, but he checks to me. Well, maybe he just has ace, king and doesn't like this board, so I bet $100. If called, I can continue on any club, 10, maybe a card that's more connecting to the 5, but it's not going to come to that. 100 takes it down. We're just trading some 3-bet pots today. Next, interesting hand. An early position player raised to $15. There's one call. I looked down at pocket queens from the cutoff. We are not just calling this. We make it $65. The initial aggressor decides to continue, but the caller decides to fold. And on a flop of 8-7-5 rainbow, similarly to betting on boards that you probably shouldn't have, as this one is obviously better for my opponent. He's got all the sets, all the suited connectors, any flopped straights will be him. But I have an overpair, and hopefully my 3-bet relegated him towards better cards that also do not connect with this board. So we're going to do a standard-ish C-bet. I bet $60, and my opponent pretty much snap folds. So we take another one down, seems good, which brings us to a final hand of note. With one limp, I look down at pocket aces in the cutoff. What a beautiful sight. I raised to $20. Even more beautiful sight is my opponent across from me, the big blind, is grabbing a bunch of green. That's not going to be a call. He 3-bets to 90.
2 very enthusiastic thumbs up. Fine holiday fun.
Been a lot of 3-bets today. I don't expect to get a whole lot of credit as, you know, maybe I'm just sick of playing 3-bet pots. Maybe it's time for me to fight back with an ace-king, ace-jack type hand. But aces is definitely going to be in there. We're not going to call. We're putting more money into the pot. I 4-bet to 290. Possibly a misstep, possibly an overplay. My opponent doesn't think too long before folding, but either way, we'll fold out whatever equity he did have. We'll take the 90 that's in there pre, and we'll just move on from there. Unfortunately for me, the power seemed to go out at the room at this time, and there was an emergency light on. So the lighting made vlogging and even playing a lot more difficult. The floor would shut down in about 20 minutes, send everyone home for whatever this power issue was. So we end up racking a decent sized win. We're into the game for $1,000, out of the game for $1,370, which is a profit of $317 across 5 hours, equates to $63 an hour, or 12 big blinds an hour. Yeah, it definitely would have been nice to get all the money in with aces, possibly against kings or queens, something like that. Especially my opponent did a pretty big 3-bet up to 90, not just 4x, a little higher. So kind of interesting that he has a 3-bet folding range of that size. But either way, we will take the profit on the day, take the win, move out of the hole, move towards a large live stream happening. Good luck us. Remember to follow me on Instagram if you want to get the link to that stream when it goes live. And I will see you on the next one.